Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that has, well, utterly reshaped our professional and personal lives over the past few years working from home. It's gone from this niche concept to, for many of us, a really significant part of the new normal. But is this truly the undeniable future of work? Is it a permanent fixture? Or maybe just a lingering echo of a very unique moment in history? What does the actual research, the real world experience, actually tell us about this massive shift?
Okay, let's unpack this because the answers are far more nuanced and fascinating than you might expect.
Indeed. And our mission for this deep dive is really to cut through the sort of casual observations and the widespread anecdotes. We want to provide you with a truly comprehensive understanding of remote work as it stands today. So to do that, we've meticulously gathered sources that span a really wide spectrum. We're talking personal experiences, the kind that resonate with so many of us, right through to rigorous scientific studies offering that empirical evidence. And even the evolving legal frameworks that are frankly trying to catch up with this rapid shift. Our goal is really to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, help you navigate the complexities of this incredibly dynamic and, still evolving landscape. What's particularly fascinating here, I think, is the sheer breadth of perspectives we uncovered. It goes from the intimate individual well-being of a single worker all the way up to national level regulation and these profound societal shifts. It's a truly holistic picture we're trying to paint.
Okay, so let's start by maybe challenging a pretty common assumption, one I think most of us instinctively hold. When we think of working from home, we often picture it as this huge, unprecedented thing that just exploded solely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was, without a doubt, an unexpected catalyst, right? It propelled millions of people into the world of teleworking, as one of our sources puts it so well. But was that truly the beginning of remote work? Or was something already brewing, maybe even, in full swing, long before lockdown orders changed everything? What did your deep dive into the historical sources uncover there?
That's a really crucial distinction, and our sources offer a very compelling counter-narrative to that popular perception. While the pandemic certainly acted as this massive accelerator, pushing remote work into the mainstream like never before, one of our sources actually posits that the work-from-home revolution began much, much earlier than 2020. They claim it started around 2000, 2003, along with the modern internet.
Wow, 2002.
Yeah, and was already in full swing globally in 2004, 2005.
That's a significant claim. So nearly 2 decades earlier, what kind of evidence or reasoning supports that? What was happening back then?
Exactly. If you think about it, the early 2000s, that's when we saw the rapid maturation of broadband internet, right? The rise of powerful email clients, the development of early VPNs for secure remote access, and the emergence of more sophisticated, though, let's be honest, still clunky collaboration software compared to now.
Right. Things were definitely different then, technologically.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the fundamental tech infrastructure that made remote work possible was certainly taking root. You had companies like IBM experimenting with large-scale telecommuting programs even before then. So this perspective suggests that the fundamental changes enabling remote work have actually been developing for, 2 decades, quietly bubbling under the surface. The technologies we now take for granted, like Zoom or Slack, they simply came in handy later in the era of COVID, rather than being the sole genesis of the movement. It really frames remote work as this longer, more organic development, built on foundational changes in tech and connectivity, not just a sudden jump born purely out of necessity.
So it was an evolution, accelerated by crisis.
Precisely. It was an evolution, not a spontaneous creation.
That's a really important reframing. It wasn't born out of necessity. It was simply pushed into the mainstream, forced into rapid adoption by necessity. Okay, so if it's been evolving for a while and then had this massive involuntary surge during the pandemic, how much of this pandemic-fueled shift has actually stuck? Is it still as prevalent now that many of the immediate pressures have eased? Or are people just rushing back to the office full time?
That's a key question, and we have some concrete, pretty illustrative statistics from Norway that give us a clear picture of the current landscape. Last year, sort of at the peak of the pandemic's influence, people in Norway worked at home, on average about 59% of their total working time.
59%? That's huge. More than half their working hours.
Exactly. A truly significant portion of the work week. However, with the abatement of the immediate epidemic pressures, that percentage has now decreased. It's down to 37%.
Okay, 37%. That's a notable reduction from the peak, almost a 40% drop. Does that suggest a significant retreat from remote work then?
Well, it's a reduction, yes, but it's crucial to look at it in context. While it's down from the peak, 37% of working time still represents a very substantial amount of remote work. And here's where it gets even more interesting and reveals the underlying trend. Despite this decrease, a full 50% of Norwegians in the labor market still have the opportunity to work from home.
Half the workforce still has the option.
Yes. This implies that employers have largely kept remote options open, they see the value, and of that group who can work from home, a robust 53% actually work at home at least one working day a week.
So effectively, over half of those with the option are still actively using it at least some of the time. What does that tell us about the long-term viability or, the preferences for remote work?
It clearly illustrates that remote work, though fluctuating from its absolute peak, remains a deeply significant embedded part of the modern work environment. It's no longer just a fringe benefit. It's become a structural component of how many people operate. This isn't a fleeting trend that just disappeared once the crisis passed. It indicates a fundamental shift in how work is organized and performed, with a substantial portion of the workforce consistently choosing or being enabled to work remotely at least part of the time. The infrastructure is there, the choice is being exercised, and it really speaks to a persistent preference.
That's incredible. It's truly not just a fleeting trend then. It's here to stay in some form. Okay, now let's shift our focus a bit. From these broad statistics, the macro view, let's get down to the individual level. What is the tangible day-to-day impact of working from home on our well-being, our daily lives? What did that Australian study we dug into reveal? The one conducted over 4 years, uniquely starting before the pandemic. What did it find about the actual impact on well-being? Were its findings surprising?
It truly offers profound, valuable scientific insights, precisely because it had that pre-pandemic baseline. It wasn't just reacting to a crisis, it was tracking changes in worker well-being over time, which gives it this unique longitudinal depth. And the researchers, they are unequivocal in their findings. Offering flexibility significantly improves the well-being and happiness of employees.
Unequivocal. That's strong language from researchers.
It is, and they detail some very specific, tangible benefits that go beyond just feeling happier. One of the most immediate and impactful findings was related to sleep and stress. Teleworkers on average gained almost half an hour more sleep per night.
Wow. 30 extra minutes every night.
30 extra minutes of genuine rest every single night, consistently. And the study directly links this substantial sleep gain to the reduction in commuting. Before the pandemic, the average Australian spent around 4.5 hours a week just traveling for work, just getting there and back.
4.5 hours. That's like adding an extra half workday just in travel.
Exactly. And researchers explicitly point out that this commuting time is often correlated with poorer mental health and a poorer perception of one's own health. So reducing or eliminating these daily journeys, which aren't just time sinks, but massive sources of stress and fatigue, it has a direct and positive impact on both mental and physical well-being. It's a profound shift in the daily rhythm. It frees up time and energy that was previously just consumed by the grind of the commute.
Makes sense. Less stress, more sleep.
Now, it is worth noting, the study did observe a slight increase in alcohol consumption right at the outset of the pandemic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, perhaps a reflection of that initial stress, maybe the blurring of work-life boundaries when people were suddenly forced into this new setup. But, and this is crucial, it seems to have been a short-term blip. The overwhelming and sustained trend as the study progressed and people adapted was firmly towards greater well-being.
Okay, so an initial reaction versus the long-term adaptation.
Precisely. It shows that initial reactions to forced change can be very different from long-term chosen adaptations.
That's fascinating. So beyond the immediate benefits of more sleep, how are people actually reinvesting those precious hours saved on transport? Are they just, working more hours from home, or is this really translating into a better quality of life?
That's exactly what the study meticulously explored. And it's not just dead time that's freed up. The research shows that some of this time is, predictably, devoted to more work. So productivity isn't necessarily suffering, and in some cases, maybe even enhanced by focused work blocks without office interruptions.
Okay, so some extra work time?
But a significant portion is also channeled into family responsibilities or caring, which can be a profound benefit for work-life integration, especially for parents or, those caring for elderly relatives.
That flexibility must be huge for caregivers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is where it truly gets compelling. Around a third of this freed up time is allocated to leisure activities.
A third to leisure.
Yes. And this is critical because, as the researchers point out, by devoting more time to leisure when working from home, there are more opportunities to be physically active and less sedentary. This isn't just about relaxation. It's about improved physical health outcomes, directly linked to more time for hobbies, exercise, or simply being outdoors.
Right, less time stuck in traffic, more time for a walk or the gym.
Exactly. In fact, Spanish research, which kind of corroborates these findings, suggests that teleworkers could gain up to 10 extra days of free time per year.
10 extra days, that's almost 2 weeks of additional vacation just from cutting the commute.
Imagine what that means for personal lives, for pursuing passions, for overall quality of life, and avoiding burnout. It's substantial.
Incredible. And you mentioned health as well. Did the study uncover any other health-related shifts, maybe in areas like diet?
Absolutely. The study also revealed a fascinating shift in eating habits. Now, while the proximity of the kitchen may well have encouraged an increase in snacking, which, let's be real, is relatable for many of us who suddenly have easy access to the pantry.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Right. But the study highlights a deeper trend towards healthier food choices. They saw a noticeable rise in the consumption of vegetables, fruit, and dairy products, alongside an increase in the preparation of home-cooked meals.
Oh, that's interesting. So less grabbing quick lunches out.
It suggests that the reduced time pressure of commuting, the ability to actually be at home during lunch, allows for a more intentional and healthier food preparation. Moving away from those quick, often less nutritious options you might grab on the go or from office cafeterias.
So it really is a holistic improvement across multiple facets of daily life, sleep, leisure, diet.
Exactly. It's not just one thing.
That comprehensive look at well-being is incredibly powerful. It's not just about superficial job satisfaction. It seems to be about a genuinely healthier, more balanced life enabled by working from home. And to really bring this point home, to illustrate the stark contrast with how things used to be, let's look at that powerful personal anecdote we found. It really illustrates the historical challenges that remote work now addresses so beautifully. How does this story resonate with what we've just discussed?
This comes from Gisley R. Johnson, and he shares his deeply personal struggles from a time before working from home was common practice at all. He recounts trying to orchestrate international moves from Iceland to Germany, then to the UK for work. Despite scheduling these moves 10, 11 months before, he found himself completely unable to get free from work.
Even with almost a year's notice.
Even then. He describes the immense stress, like having his belongings were on board of a ship between Iceland and Germany and still being stuck at work, physically tied to an office. And the profound impact this had on his family life is just crystal clear when he recalls missing his children terribly. Later in England, he even had to take his kids with me to work. Meanwhile, I was looking for someone to look after them, lamenting that the kids are only free from school a short period of time each year. He emphasizes, with real palpable frustration in his account, I couldn't get myself free from work.
Wow. That truly paints a picture of a rigid, pretty unforgiving work culture, doesn't it? One that demanded physical presence at all costs, often at the expense of crucial family time and personal well-being.
Exactly. His story vividly paints this picture of a professional world where your physical presence was paramount, regardless of your personal circumstances. It was a system that could create immense conflict between professional obligations and personal needs. And he powerfully contrasts this past difficulty with his present perspective, stating that now it's much healthier and more natural to work from home than to have to take your children to work.
It really drives home the human impact.
It does. This personal story, this raw human experience, it profoundly illustrates the relief and the immense flexibility that working from home can offer. It transforms what were once these intractable professional, personal conflicts into manageable choices, allowing for a level of integration that was simply unimaginable for many just a couple of decades ago. It's a real testament to the human-centric benefits of this shift.
That anecdote truly highlights the human cost of a purely office-centric model. So while the personal benefits of working from home seem incredibly clear, deeply impactful, what happens when a widespread, somewhat informal practice like this needs to become formalized, needs to be regulated? What are the implications for employers and employees when we try to put rules around something that evolved so organically and then exploded so quickly?
And this is exactly where the regulatory landscape comes into play, and Norway provides a fascinating, really forward-thinking case study here. From July 1st, 2022, new rules from the Norwegian Labor Inspectorate, Arbeidstilsynet, came into effect. And these rules specifically sharpen the responsibility of employers towards employees who use a home office, or hjemmekontor, as the Norwegians call it.
I'm a contour. Okay.
The Norwegian government clearly recognized that if remote work was becoming a permanent fixture, it needed to be governed by the same principles of safety, fairness, and support that applied to traditional workplaces. It just wasn't enough to let it happen informally anymore.
Right, you need some structure. And what are the key provisions of these new rules? What specific responsibilities are employers now shouldering when their employees are working from, their living rooms or spare bedrooms?
Well, the core of these new provisions is really about ensuring equity and comprehensive protection. Martin Jespersen, who was the Minister of Employment and Social Affairs at the time, emphasized in a press release that employees should enjoy the same protection at home as at the workplace with regard to the work environment, and that psychosocial support is guaranteed.
Psychosocial support at home, too. That's significant.
It is. It's a critical point. Your home office is not a regulatory void. Employers still have a robust duty of care. This means considering things like ergonomics, providing necessary equipment, and critically, ensuring mental health and psychosocial support. It recognizes that the home office can present its own unique stressors like isolation or boundary blurring, and employers need to address those proactively.
Makes sense.
Furthermore, the rules stipulate that working hours must be the same, regardless of whether the work is done at home or at the workplace.
So preventing that always-on culture.
Exactly. This is vital to prevent potential exploitation or an expectation that remote work means 24/7 availability. It ensures employees maintain a healthy work-life balance legally.
So clear boundaries and support are now legally mandated in Norway. And what about formalizing the arrangement itself? Is there a requirement for, say, a written agreement between the employer and employee?
Absolutely. A truly crucial requirement of these new Norwegian rules is for a separate written agreement between the employee and the employer regarding homework. This formalizes the arrangement. It lays out clear expectations and responsibilities for both parties.
What kind of things would go in that agreement?
Well, it can cover everything from the specific days worked remotely to provision of equipment, maybe expense reimbursement for internet or supplies, and even protocols for communication and performance review in a remote context. This is really meant to protect both the employee by clearly defining their rights and expectations, and the employer by setting out the terms under which remote work is permitted.
That sounds like a really fundamental step towards clarity and protection for everyone involved. However, you mentioned earlier that there's a significant gap between these new regulations and current practice in Norway. How wide is that gap exactly, and what are the implications of such low compliance?
It is indeed a significant gap. The data reveals that currently only 18% of those who work at home have made such an agreement.
Only 18%. Wow, that's low.
It's a staggering disparity. It suggests that while the law is on the books, widespread adoption of these formal agreements is lagging significantly behind. Now, why this gap exists is probably a complex question.
Yeah, I imagine so.
It could be a combination of factors. Maybe a lack of awareness among some employers about the new requirements. Perhaps a perceived bureaucratic hurdle that some smaller businesses are reluctant to take on. Or even maybe a degree of employee complacency, where people might prioritize the flexibility they have over formalizing it with documentation.
And what are the potential long-term risks if these agreements aren't in place for both employees and companies, especially around issues like work-life balance or if disputes arise?
The risks are considerable, really, for both sides. For employees, a lack of a written agreement can mean unclear expectations regarding working hours, who pays for what, or even the fundamental right to continue working from home long-term. It can lead to disputes over equipment, cybersecurity responsibilities, or even termination if the arrangement isn't properly documented and agreed upon.
Leaves things very ambiguous.
Very. And for employers, non-compliance carries clear legal risks. It opens them up to potential liabilities concerning work environment regulations, employee well-being, potentially even discrimination claims if remote work policies are applied inconsistently or unfairly. It also just complicates their ability to manage a remote workforce effectively when the ground rules aren't clearly defined for everyone. It leaves far too much to informal understanding, which, as we know, can quickly break down.
That makes perfect sense. So with such low compliance, how does the labor inspectorate, Arbeidstilsynet, actually supervise these new rules? Are they showing up at people's homes to check on their desk chairs?
No. Thankfully, they're not suddenly appearing at people's homes. That would be a bit more. Trude Volheim, the director of the inspectorate, clarified that their supervision is towards employers, and that they meet the conditions. So this means their enforcement efforts focus on auditing companies, responding to employee complaints, and ensuring that businesses have the necessary policies and, crucially, those written agreements in place for the remote workforce. The onus is clearly on the businesses to ensure they are compliant, rather than on individual home inspections.
Okay, so they're checking the paperwork and the policies at the company level.
Exactly. It highlights a more modern approach to regulation, focusing on systemic compliance rather than individual surveillance.
That's a huge disparity, though, 18% compliance with a fundamental written agreement. It really highlights the challenge of formalizing such a widespread and rapidly adopted practice. Now, let's address some of the biggest questions, maybe the elephants in the room, that often come up around remote work, especially from a management perspective. What about productivity, and what about team cohesion, that sense of connection we often get from being in a shared physical space? Many managers express real anxieties about these aspects. What's the real story behind productivity when employees are working from home?
These are absolutely valid concerns, and the productivity debate has been particularly fierce, hasn't it? Often fueled by anecdotal evidence or, let's face it, pre-existing biases. While some managers express fears about a drop in performance, sometimes pointing the finger at a lack of supervision. The Australian study, which we discussed earlier regarding well-being, offers a powerful research-backed counterpoint here too. Its findings, which are corroborated by other research, consistently suggest that professional performance and productivity are maintained and even improved when employees work from home.
Maintained and even improved. That directly contradicts the lack of supervision fear.
It really does. It directly challenges the traditional notion that direct physical oversight is somehow necessary for output.
So, the data suggests productivity is not only maintained, but potentially enhanced. Why do you think some managers still cling to these fears then? What does that phrase, masking a lack of new management methods, actually mean in practice?
That's a crucial insight from some experts observing this. When they say these managerial assertions sometimes mask a lack of new management methods adapted to remote working, they're implying that the issue isn't necessarily a failure of the employee or the remote model itself, but perhaps a failure of outdated management approaches to adapt.
So what does a lack of new management methods look like?
Well, it suggests that some managers might be clinging to these old models of supervision where presence equals productivity, right? Where seeing an employee at their desk is somehow equated with actual work being done. In a remote world, effective management shifts profoundly. It has to. It moves from watching people to empowering them, from focusing on input, like hours spent at a desk, to focusing on outcome and measurable results.
Output over presenteeism.
Exactly. And this requires different skills for managers. Clear, often asynchronous communication, setting really measurable goals, fostering psychological safety so employees feel comfortable asking for help or flagging issues, building genuine trust, providing regular constructive feedback based on results, not just observation. It's about leading by results, not by proximity.
That's a critical insight. It really moves the focus from where work is done to how work is managed. And it puts the onus on management to adapt their style. But you mentioned something else within the Australian study that profoundly impacts the remote work experience, a really crucial distinction. What does this mean for someone considering a work-from-home arrangement or for companies designing their policies?
This is indeed a crucial point from the Australian study, and it helps to reconcile some of the seemingly contradictory experiences people had, especially during the pandemic. The study emphasizes the profound difference between imposed and chosen teleworking. When working from home is imposed like it was during strict confinements and lockdowns, often without adequate preparation equipment or, importantly, choice mental health and well-being can actually suffer.
Right, being forced into it suddenly, maybe in a suboptimal setup.
Precisely. It makes perfect sense. It was born out of fear and necessity, often lacking the supportive infrastructure, maybe juggling childcare simultaneously. It was stressful.
So being forced into it, even if it's the same physical act of working from home, feels fundamentally different from choosing it.
Exactly. The study found that when individuals choose to work from home, their well-being tends to improve significantly. This highlights the paramount importance of agency and autonomy. The power of choice transforms the experience. And interestingly, this positive effect is all the more marked when employees benefit from the support of their colleagues and their company.
Ah, so choice plus support is the winning combination.
Absolutely. It's not just about the location itself. It's about having the flexibility, the individual choice, and that robust support system in place. Things like proper tech support, Clear communication channels, empathetic leadership that understands remote challenges, that's what truly drives those positive well-being outcomes.
Yeah.
It's about empowerment, not compulsion.
Which means for companies, simply offering remote work isn't enough.
Right. It's about building a culture where remote work is a genuinely supported, chosen option, not just a policy on paper.
That makes so much sense. It's the difference between being forced into something and choosing it with support. But even with that choice, there are still valid concerns, particularly about those social connections. What about team cohesion when you're not seeing your colleagues face to face every day? Isn't there an intangible loss when you move to a fully remote model or even mostly remote?
You're right. Concerns definitely remain about the impact on team cohesion, social ties at work, and promotion opportunities. That last one is interesting too. Visibility for advancement. And it's undeniable that the connection between colleagues is more difficult to reproduce at a distance. Those impromptu water cooler chats, the quick hallway discussions, the subtle nonverbal cues you pick up in a meeting, these are all harder to replicate virtually.
Yeah, the Zoom fatigue is real, and it's not the same as just chatting over coffee.
Not at all. And those things contribute significantly to a sense of belonging, camaraderie, even serendipitous innovation sometimes. There's a real human element to being physically together that is challenging to replicate fully. However, the study tempers these fears by emphasizing the stability and even improvement in performance in remote settings.
So performance holds up even if the social dynamic changes.
Exactly. So while social ties might feel different or require more intentional effort to maintain, they aren't necessarily broken. And crucially, productivity doesn't seem to suffer. It suggests that while we absolutely need to be intentional about fostering connection in a remote or hybrid environment, the core work can still be done effectively and sometimes even more efficiently.
So it's not an either-or. It's about finding the right balance, maybe being more deliberate about connection. And I believe Marte Nubdal from NTNU, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, offered a very nuanced perspective on this idea of optimal balance. What was her take?
She certainly did. Marte Nupdal, she's a consultant at the Faculty of Social and Educational Sciences at NTNU in Trondheim, offers a perspective that aligns with what many companies seem to be increasingly adopting. She believes that while working entirely from home might have individual benefits, the balance will always be best when people move their workplace home one or more working days a week.
Ah, the hybrid model.
Precisely. It
Yeah.
speaks directly to the burgeoning popularity of hybrid approaches. But she also stresses that some boundaries need to be set. This isn't just about employee well-being and preventing burnout from the always-on potential. It's also about the long-term health of the organization itself. As she puts it, workplaces need a vibrant work environment.
What does a vibrant work environment mean in this context? Why is it so important that it isn't entirely lost in a remote-first or remote-heavy world?
That's a great question. I think vibrant work environment speaks to the collective energy, right? The informal knowledge sharing, the spontaneous brainstorming that happens when people bump into each other, the cultural cohesion that often thrives on those in-person interactions. It's where company values are really lived and reinforced, where mentorship can happen more organically, where new employees are truly integrated into the team culture.
Things that are harder to schedule over Zoom.
Much harder. Losing that entirely could potentially impact innovation, team spirit, and maybe even long-term loyalty to the company. So while remote work offers incredible flexibility and individual benefits, Nubdal's perspective really advocates for intelligently integrating it, rather than completely replacing the traditional office. It's about leveraging the best of both worlds, the focused work and personal flexibility of home, combined with the collaborative energy and cultural reinforcement of the office, maybe on a scheduled, intentional basis.
So creating a workplace that benefits from proximity without being solely limited by it.
Exactly. Designing work around purpose and need, not just location.
Okay, bringing all of these insights together, from the surprising origins of remote work much earlier than we thought, to its profound and documented personal impacts on well-being, the evolving regulations trying to keep pace, and that crucial distinction between imposed versus chosen teleworking. When we pull all these threads together, what kind of future are we really heading towards for work? What's the big, overarching takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the findings, especially from that multi-year Australian study, really do call for a broader reflection on the organization of work as a whole. It's not just about where anymore. The evidence is pretty compelling. Employees who work full-time from home or in a hybrid model consistently report higher job satisfaction and well-being. This isn't just a fleeting preference or a trend driven solely by the crisis conditions of the pandemic. It really confirms the growing desire for greater flexibility and autonomy in managing one's professional activity.
A fundamental shift in employee expectations.
I think so. It speaks to a fundamental shift in what employees value and expect from their work environment. It's moving beyond just compensation to prioritize control over their time and better integration of work with the rest of their life. And for businesses, this translates directly into implications for talent attraction, for retention, for overall employee engagement. Companies that embrace this flexibility are likely to have a significant competitive advantage moving forward.
So is this flexibility, this higher satisfaction, is it the universal solution for everyone, or is it something more adaptable, more tailored to specific needs and roles across different industries? Is it a one-size-fits-all model now?
That's a critical point, and the research clearly indicates that working from home is not a universal solution, a one-size-fits-all model that can be applied to all situations. It just isn't. Instead, it appears to be a valuable option among others. It's a powerful tool in the organizational toolkit, a capability, not necessarily a mandate for everyone.
An option, not the only answer.
Precisely. It's capable of contributing to a better, more inclusive and flexible working environment, for sure. Think about how it opens up opportunities for individuals with mobility challenges, or those living in remote geographic areas far from job centers, or caregivers who need that immediate proximity to home. But it's not the only way forward, nor is it suitable for every single role or every industry. Some jobs require physical presence, specialized equipment, or intense hands-on collaboration.
Right.
So the researchers conclude that our approach to work must evolve, embracing the diversity of needs and lifestyles. This is really about moving beyond a binary choice, office versus home. It's less a question of pitting face-to-face against remote working, and more a question of creating tailor-made solutions that benefit both employees and forward-thinking businesses.
Tailor-made solutions. I like that framing.
It's about intelligently designing work that fits the people and the purpose, rather than forcing people into a predefined mold that might not work for them or the task. This might mean different policies for different teams within the same company, or even offering different options for individuals within the same team based on their role and preferences.
That's a truly powerful synthesis. Tailor-made solutions for a diverse workforce. It really feels like we're moving into an era where the very definition of the office is fundamentally changing, isn't it? It's less a physical place, maybe more an experience or a network.
Absolutely. It perfectly echoes Gisli R. Johnson's philosophical stance, which we heard earlier. Remember, it's just a matter of where your workplace is and freedom of choice. And his powerful, almost defining personal motto, "My office is where my IP address is."
Yeah, that really stuck with me.
It encapsulates the essence of this new era, doesn't it? It's a mindset that prioritizes outcome and flexibility over physical location. He also makes that very important distinction, reminding us that there's a big difference between being an employee with a home office, working remotely, or working from home with your own business, which just reinforces the idea that customization and individual context are absolutely paramount. The future of work isn't about finding one fixed model that works for everyone. It's about intelligent, adaptive design that acknowledges diverse needs and empowers individuals to optimize their own work-life integration. It's truly a shift in the very philosophy of how we approach professional life.
What an incredible journey we've taken through the world of remote work today, from its surprising origins much earlier than most people realize to its profound and documented impact on our well-being and daily lives. Then looking at the evolving regulatory landscape, trying to keep pace, and that really crucial distinction of choice that truly separates a good experience from a potentially less positive one. It's clear that remote work in various forms, hybrid, fully remote, flexible, it's undeniably here to stay.
Indeed. And as technology continues to advance, think about how virtual reality and advanced AI might redefine our interactions and collaboration in the future. As that happens, and as our understanding of human needs in the workplace continues to grow, it leaves us with this provocative thought, maybe something for you to mull over. How will the very definition of workplace continue to evolve beyond simply physical or digital spaces? If, as Gisli R. Johnson suggests, our office is where our IP address is, what new forms of community, mentorship, and that crucial spontaneous connection will we need to intentionally cultivate to maintain a truly vibrant, innovative, and supportive professional ecosystem? The physical boundaries may be dissolving, but the human need for belonging and shared purpose, that remains, and perhaps it's more critical than ever to figure out how to nurture it in this new landscape.